Welcome to Dairyland Frights, the podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. I'm your host, John, and today, boy, folks, you're in for a real treat. I have Brett on, and I was looking at her stuff, and it really occurred to me, we don't talk about this a lot on the podcast, but she is a haunted therapist, actually a real therapist. And I thought I'd bring her on the podcast and we can have a little fun as well as talk about some things dealing with the paranormal and, people what they deal with on a daily basis, maybe in their life. So welcome, Brett.
Well, thanks, John. Thanks for reaching out. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And I'm excited to have you because I've seen your content and I said, I got to get Brett on. She has awesome content. And, she's really trying to help people. It's kind of a new thing to be I don't want to say haunted therapist, but like paranormal therapist, or maybe what would you call it? Like an exceptional human experience therapist? What do you call it, Brett?
Well, I'm a therapist first. I've been a licensed therapist for 11 years. I've been in private practice for 5 years, and I'm certified in EMDR. So that's what I'm doing first. I do a lot of work with trauma survivors because of the EMDR connection. But the office that I moved into for my private practice was haunted, and I never really had like a lot. And it never really, I know. So it almost chose me in a way, but it's not like I had a lot of experiences in this when I was a little kid or anything like that. I've always been very open-minded, but more towards like the metaphysical, more towards like quantum physics and spirituality, transpersonal psychology, transcendental meditation, all that kind of stuff. And then I moved into this office and things started happening. And so that kind of tipped me off. But then I had clients having experiences and I was noticing the way that I was handling those. And then the other prong of the fork here, I guess, as to how I got here is, when I'm doing trauma work, when I'm doing EMDR or clinical hypnosis, things like that, I'm speaking in metaphor a lot because metaphor is the language of the subconscious mind. And the metaphor that I was always using was, well, trauma is like a ghost that pops up and takes hold of your nervous system when you're least expecting it, when you didn't ask for it to happen. So I was using all these haunted references or metaphors. So I was like, you know what, let's just throw it all together in a blender and see what comes out. And here she is.
And there we go. Let's back up. Yes. Haunted office. I don't hear that a lot, but I know they're out there. What do you mean? Like they're moving your coffee cup? Like what's going on?
So speaking of moving coffee cup, now we're having a lot of activity in my home, which is like it's old farmhouse. And I have something or somebody in here that does move things, but we can talk about that later. So sure. My office building, it's an older building. It's not that old, but it's in a small town. So who knows what it was before then, before the building was built. So it started out relatively mild. Like I would hear footsteps. It's a mostly empty building. It's mostly just me in there. And I know the days that there's nobody else in there. So it started out with me hearing footsteps coming down to my office. So I would just be like, oh, my client's here. And I would peek around because I'm like, why are they not coming in? And nobody's there. And these were like actual footsteps, right? Like I can hear them over my white noise, sound machine and everything. But then it started to pick up a little bit where I have a plant on the floor, like a snake plant, the kind of stand up straight. And I was in session and I'm sitting here and my client is sitting, I guess where the viewer is. And between us is this plant. And all of a sudden the leaf, and there was no windows open, there was no air blowing out or anything. And snake plants are pretty firm. And it just started moving like this, as if somebody was over there going like that. My client and I were both like, excuse me, HIPAA violation, right? Like, what are you doing here? This is private.
Yeah.
Easy. And if you want me to keep going, I will.
Yes, please.
A couple more significant things. 2 separate clients on 2 totally different occasions thought that they saw a cat in my office. And then months later, which I'm deathly allergic to cats, I would never have a cat. And again, the building is mostly empty, but a couple months later, somebody who was in the office, happened to be in the office above me that day, was like, messaged me and said, do you have a cat? I'm like, no, not a living one. Because they're like, oh, we hear meowing and scratching coming from your office.
Wow.
So strange. So 3 separate, and that's what I love about paranormal experiences is when, because if we're all doing a ghost hunt together at a paranormal location, we all hear something at the same time or something like that. It's so validating. So that's very validating. So apparently I have a ghost kitty.
Nice.
Which is great because I'm not allergic to that kind.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last thing I'll say, oh, sorry.
No, I say that's really cool. That's interesting.
I know, it's different. It's like, is that really the spirit of a cat? Is that the spirit of what was once human or not human that's shape shifting? Is it an elemental? I don't know. There's so many different ways you can go.
Right.
But the area where both clients saw this cat, I did have a couple different psychic mediums come into my office for couple different podcast episodes. And as soon as they walked in and they looked over to that corner of my office, they both were like, whoa, there's some kind of energy over there, or the energy is different over there. They didn't see the cat, but they saw that the energy over there was different. So needless to say, I stopped doing telehealth in that corner and I just kind of do it on my couch now where I see in-person clients because I'm like, you know what? We don't need to be mixing that kind of energy in just in case.
Yeah, exactly. You don't think just throwing this out at you don't think it's like a portal or anything that's in your office?
What makes you say that? Do you think maybe it could be? Because I don't know enough about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what it really would mean is maybe they're in the building because, maybe you do some research history. A lot of buildings have basically portals where spirits travel in and out of. It's kind of like a bus station or a train station or whatever, you know what I mean? Where they're just traveling in and out. I would, if you have a medium come in sometime, maybe you'd have her or him be like, hey, can you just see if that's a portal or something? Because some have that sensitivity, they could. And I think that'd be really cool because, again, portals usually generalize what's coming through it. It could be an animal, it could be a spirit, it could be a number of different things, good and bad. So it's, what I mean? It's just kind of used as the ghost spirits, whatever you want to say, go, oh, here we go. Especially with pets. I mean, obviously that cat was probably someone's cat in the building. Probably just roamed the building. Everybody knew Mr. Whiskers or whatever you want to, you know what I mean? If there's Mr. Whiskers going up and down the stairs again. And then Mr. Whiskers probably passed away in that building and everybody was like, oh, that's really sad. And then, people with their sadness and their grief, as you know, that has to go somewhere, right? You know what I mean? It just doesn't vanish. It goes somewhere, whether you believe in a cursed doll, whether you believe in a building, whether you believe in anything. It has to go somewhere. It just doesn't disappear. And it's a whole different thing, a stone tape theory, which is a whole different theory of how things absorb into different things of good and bad, into an object because it was there. So it's interesting.
Well, it begs the question too, like a counseling office, like people's residual energy. So I don't just believe that there's entities or energy or whatever it is of people who have passed. There's also energy that we're giving off. And I believe there's energy in other dimensions that sometimes sneak through or, time slips, things like that. But you got to think that a counseling office is haunted in the classic sense of the word, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're haunting this place, like we're visiting it literally in person. And people come and they're having so many of their most raw, vulnerable, authentic feelings, just putting that out there. And so luckily there's nothing negative that has stayed. As a matter of fact, my plants, the ones that are moving and the ones that aren't, are thriving. I've got some that are like growing down the ceiling and everything. I mean, these plants thrive on people's tears. No joke.
Yeah.
There is so much that lingers.
Absolutely. That's why I've always, I know this sounds weird, I've always wondered if a therapist sold their couch that had all this, what would it be like? You know what I mean? You just take it home and you're sitting on the couch and you're like, why do I feel sad? Every time I sit on this couch, I feel sad.
Or better.
Depending upon the therapist or depending upon what's been on there. Or maybe you sit on this couch and you start to feel better after a while. You're like, I love this couch.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I love that. Yeah, I love that.
So let me ask you this. We're going to start out with a hot fire question, Brett. What scares you?
Oh my God. Literally not a lot. It's very strange.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't like small like I'm claustrophobic. That's literally it. I don't know. I'm not saying that, I don't have the fear response or something like that. I'm not a sociopath, but I don't know. Fear doesn't often come into the equation for me when I'm approaching new situations, new locations, new people, whether it's, new clients that are contacting me, or if a client is expressing like a great deal of rage and anger that they have to get out. Totally fine. Haunted, I don't know. I like going to the dark, abandoned corners of not just buildings, but also people's minds, apparently. So, I think fear is good to use as kind of like a radar or a gauge. But I think that we absolutely need to approach the paranormal with curiosity and not fear. And it could be a little bit, I have ADHD, so it could be a little bit that I'm constantly in a state of curiosity and taking in information, and curiosity outweighs in the brain anxiety, and anxiety is usually like a fear-based kind of thing, fear-based kind of residual response. So it could be that a little bit that does it for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I don't have a fear. I have a fear of just one thing, and that is being like sleep paralysis. That I've read about and have had people on where, you're paralyzed, right? And you can't move. I mean, one of my biggest fears is like being somewhere that I'm paralyzed and a monster or something's coming towards me and I can't fight it. I can't move. It's coming.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's going to do to me, right? And I think that's really interesting.
So your fear would be feeling powerless or helpless.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to look at different fears and what the underpinnings of that actually might be for people, right? And then we go even deeper. And this is why I love using paranormal as examples, even in clinical settings. Because then if you go underneath that, well, how come? Like, where did you learn that being powerless or helpless was something that you couldn't tolerate, or that you couldn't handle, or that it can only look one way? Like defending yourself can only look one way. I mean, it's endless how deep you can go with these concepts, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And one of the things I think imagine you're a spirit and you're trapped in that house for whatever reason. You can't leave, you can't go into the light, whatever you want to say. Yeah. That could cause anger, right? That could cause certain emotions. That could cause, sadness, anger, fear, a bunch of different emotions that can translate onto the person investigating that location, right? Where, I guess if you like a medium, which I've talked to several mediums where they've gone in, and you kind of bring it up too, where they've gone into a place and say, wow, there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of sadness I'm picking up, and that's just fascinating to me, the paranormal. Like, why is that happening? Obviously, there's a history behind it, but there's also numerous underlying currents that could be associated with that fear or sadness or whatever it might be.
The most important piece of that is what I talk about a lot, is how the paranormal can positively impact our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health too, I suppose. But from your example that you're saying, that's why it's so important to, before you go on investigations, ground yourself, center yourself, tune in, understand so that you can understand where your feelings end and the other begins, so that you're not transposing your own energy, your own thoughts and fears and beliefs onto the people around you or the energy around you. And paranormal investigations or experiences or just pursuits really invite us to drop into our higher self, emotional intelligence, all of those things. And practicing, like if you practice meditation, even if you can't meditate because the thoughts won't stop, great. Now you're getting to understand what your own thoughts sound like versus the thoughts that you might be hearing from an entity.
Yeah, exactly. And when I've interviewed a couple paranormal investigators who brought up the fact that they were going something, whether it be like a divorce or something like losing their mom or something, and when they went on that investigation, they felt like the spirit was trying to use that energy against them, which I thought was really interesting. And, I don't know whether it be in a bad way or a good way. I think that's up to them how they interpret it. But That's interesting too, right? If you would go into something what you just talked about, like if you go in, I don't know, you had a really shitty day at work, and now you're like, oh, I got to do this investigation tonight. Fine. I mean, probably not going to be a great investigation.
Everybody says that, and me being a contrarian by nature, I say, go. Protect yourself, protect your energy, but go. Yeah. You're going with your friends or a group of people you really like. You're going on an adventure. You're giving your nervous system some thrills and some dopamine. That's probably going to, be a good end to a bad day. Probably. I mean, everybody's different, and your theory is what most people think, and there's probably reasons for that too. But I'm here advocating for the opposite, which is just what I do.
Yeah, I love that, Brett. That's a good way to look at it. Kind of, do something that you love with the people you care about, that's interesting to you, rather than dwell. I mean, as you know, if you keep dwelling on something, you got to let things go, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's just better just to let go. So let me ask you this. When you're having a client and everything, how do you look at the difference between like a spiritual crisis, right, and a clinical psychological episode?
Yes.
Right? I mean, how do you separate those two to see how to help that patient?
Such an important question. And, before anything, I'm a clinician first. So, I have to run through different assessments and different diagnoses. I have to rule out different mental health disorders, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, bipolar. Are they having a psychotic episode, a psychotic break? Is there substance use? Is there trauma or abuse in the home? Do they have a trauma background? I mean, I have to do all that first for sure, but I'm not there to disprove or argue their experiences. I did that too when I worked with mandated clients. Okay, you didn't do it. You're innocent. Great. How do we make sense of your life now though? This thing did happen, the charges did get pinned on you. So I'm not there to say, no, I know you did it. You know what I mean? I'm not there to argue anything about that outside of reality testing. Obviously, reality testing has to come first, and then we move on, and then we fold it in. So if they clear all of those parameters and there's no mental health going on in that way, then we can get into what is it that these experiences are making you believe about yourself? What is it that you want to believe about yourself in these experiences? Because all we have are thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. In this meat suit of ours, that's all we have. So we have to look at it from those three prongs as well. And what are you going to do about it? How are you going to fold that into the meaning of your life and how you're living your life?
Yeah. I love meat suit, by the way. So
band name, right?
We're gonna get nerdy here for a second, okay? You want to get nerdy? Let's get nerdy. All right.
We're already there.
Are there? Yes, you are. That's awesome. Are there common psychological profiles for people who have frequent paranormal encounters? And the reason I bring that up is because maybe you deal with this a little too. People have been or claim they've been abducted by extraterrestrials. It's in the family. So mom got abducted, dad got abducted, son got abducted, sister got abducted. You know what I mean? Or daughter, whatever you want to say. Is there, like, when you're talking to these people, are you seeing the commonality across what you're talking to with these people or their profile?
That's interesting. Like what you just referenced is almost like generational trauma that gets passed down. Right. Yeah. And again, it's like my process would be exactly the same. And we would look at, through the lens of trauma a little bit, because that had to have been a scary, traumatic experience. Right. And then we talk more about it, and patterns are such. I mean, anybody that's ever gone to counseling, and they're a lot of times trying to make changes, behavioral changes in their life. And it's so hard because we're fighting up against our own nature or patterns that we've had in place for years or things that we've learned from a kid. So if you've learned from a kid that aliens are real and mom and dad got abducted and I think I was abducted too, then we just look at that through the same lens that I would go through, like I just detailed, for if it were a haunting. And what are you gonna, and this is the thing, is that what is that doing to your life? So if it's disrupting your life in some way, I can only do so much. So if these things are actually happening, I need to call in an expert of some kind with some of these things, like depending on what we're talking about. Like a really negative haunting or alien abduction. What are we going to do about that? I don't even know. All I can do is help you process what that was like for you. If it was traumatic, is it haunting your nervous system still? And go from there. There are diagnoses absolutely that could be involved in that. But again, that's something that happens within the first few sessions. And then once those are ruled out, or if we can't rule them out, then then we need to explore treatment for those diagnoses, if that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But the people have to feel comfortable talking about it. And there's so many people that don't feel comfortable talking about it. That's why I'm here to yap about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we understand, at least, from the perspective of a person, that really, I have to tell you, there was a ghost that used to go and hide in my closet. I don't know if I feel comfortable telling you that, but it was real to you, right?
Exactly.
And you still remember that. You just didn't go, I can't. No, it's still affecting you, and maybe, affecting you, hopefully in a positive way, that you're curious, like, why was there a ghost in my closet? Sometimes in a negative way, but you need to talk about it, because it's never going to get better unless you say, hey, you know what I did? I researched it, and there was this little girl that was in the house and she liked to hide in the closet. So, okay. Oh, great. So how did you deal with that? Right. And you would be asking questions from there and kind of go whatever they need, to help them maybe get past it, or just to be like, woof, I got that off my chest.
Happening. It's just another thing happening to them that they're going through is how I treat it. And what are we going to do about it? And how are you going to let that affect you? Or how is it affecting you? And who are the people in your life who you can resource with and talk to about it? The paranormal community is such a supportive community. Yes. So absolutely reach out in that way too. I've met some of, I have all these new friends since starting this. It's incredible.
I know. And you're my new spooky friend. So there we go.
We already established that.
Yeah, we got that. So, Brett, because this is kind of hard, when you have someone come to you and you're helping them, and they might say to you, you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, and they go, well, should I see a priest? How do you handle that, right? Because that's a whole different ballgame for what you're doing, right? What they're going to say versus what you're going to say.
Yeah, so absolutely, I support anybody's religious practices and beliefs. And I would encourage anybody to seek support in all of the realms, right? Not just mental health, physical health, spiritual health, all of those realms. Again, it does depend on if we're working with different types of diagnoses or different types of mental health, because I guess worst case scenario, and this is probably such a small percentage that this could happen, it is possible that doing that behavior would confirm or reaffirm fears that they're having about things that aren't healthy for them to be seeking out. So that would be possible, that I would frown upon that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. That
would be such a small percentage of the population anyways, or, the mental health population, where that might not be actually a good idea, because it's confirming something in their head that's going on that's part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly.
But I joke with my clients all the time who are having a hard time. I'm like, should we call in a priest? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, if they're not making any progress from week to week, I'm like, what do we got to do? Do we need an exorcist to get you out of this situation, to get you out of this funk? But that's just me.
So you read my mind, because that's my next question. How do you navigate with a client who just throws out at you, Brett, I'm losing my mind? Like, how do you help them navigate that fear?
Oh, gosh, that's a huge question. Reality testing, making sure, running through different parameters, making sure that that's something that, are you just saying that, or how is that showing up for you behaviorally? How is that affecting your self-care, your ability to work, your relationships, all of those things? Upper level of that is I need to refer out to a higher level of care, right? The upper level of that would be inpatient treatment, which is absolutely a thing and has happened and can happen, or outpatient treatment where they have to go almost to a day treatment program and helping them relearn, almost like occupational therapy, but for mental health. So that is possible, but if it's, anything short of that, then you just have to go to counseling to find out what we do. I can't tell those secrets. habits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and totally get that. Because I think that's kind of a big thing with people who are, I don't know, navigating certain mental challenges in their life, and they may believe, and I use this as an example. What's really interesting to me is someone brought up, one of my paranormal investigators brought up, he had a case where he went into, and there was this couple, and they got divorced and everything like that. But what the weird thing was, the wife was like, I need to investigate this house because every time we're in this house, we get angry. We get mad at each other, right? We're just snapping. And then when we're out and about, like at a movie or dinner, we're fine. And eventually they just, and I'm like, huh. So you have a client come to you with something like that. How do you,
Yeah,
what do you say?
I know, right? Because you can't exactly just leave your haunted house. That's a little bit more complicated if you're
Yeah,
living in one, but yeah, I love that question too, because environments are so interactive with the brain. Like there's things that your brain won't even remember until you're back at a certain, like if you're at the kitchen sink and you're doing dishes, you're like, oh, that's right. I forgot I have to do that. And the only reason you thought of it there and remembered it there is because that's where you first thought of it. Right? Like we're so impacted. We get so much information from our environment. So it is really important to cleanse. I like to look at your living environment, your home as a living, breathing entity, because it is. It's absorbing all of your energy and then reflecting it back to you. And so that's again why it's so important to have rituals or habits, at least. They don't have to always be like these top-notch habits. It could at least just be something that your nervous system can relax and know that you're the one that's in charge. And that's the other thing too, is to know that you have dominion over, and we're in human form. So this is our space right now that we're in.
yeah,
And you have to know that you're in charge, especially if the haunting is coming from inside your own head. You
right.
have to find the part of you that still feels in charge so that you can live up here more peacefully as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. That's just tough because you don't know what it is, because it could be spirits, could be, again, a number of different things would you have to kind of drill down and figure out what that might be, because I don't know. That's a tough one for me. And, unfortunately it ended up in a sad thing, but I'm like, yeah, you can't like sell your house or whatever and just be like, I mean, you could, but maybe, who knows? Financial reasons. There's a lot of
Yeah,
other reasons too.
yeah. There's so many reasons, right? Yeah, but
Yeah,
what can you
exactly.
do to brighten up the environment? And
Hmm.
communication is a huge thing. Like if it's happening to a couple, like you just explained, go to couples therapy. And you don't even have to tell them that it's weird that it's only happening in this one location. Learn communication is such a huge thing, and it's the most difficult thing for us to do as humans. I mean, we rely on it solely.
Yeah,
And I think there's a Groucho Marx quote, something like communication is the only thing that we have, and it's the only thing we can be sure that we're not able to do, or something. I just
yeah,
butchered that, but it's actually hysterical because it's so true. You can be guaranteed that you probably misunderstood someone. So communication, keep that open. Play
yeah.
music. Music is a big one. I love music for shifting the energy of an environment, of a space. Again, even if it's just this space.
Yeah, exactly. That's really interesting because that brings out certain emotions in you, right? That you remember from that song, or that song, just those lyrics mean something to you. And you're like,
Yeah.
did they write this song about me? Sometimes it feels like that, like, what? This is interesting.
That's right. So that couple maybe could play their favorite song together and slow dance together, light a bunch of candles and slow dance together, and
Yeah.
really just enter the space in a different way, but take control back over it.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So one of the biggest things I know probably in your practice is, do you treat the ghost as a literal entity or a manifestation of the client's like internal trauma? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you treat that?
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that is such a great question. So I
yeah,
started out on the haunted therapist path, treating it symbolically, that trauma is a residual haunting of the nervous system, and that, our own minds can be our own haunted house. So like a residual haunting is unprocessed trauma or unprocessed grief. So then in therapy, we're doing different techniques, EMDR, just talking, whatever, from one to the other, anything in between. And that is turning the residual haunting into an intelligent haunting, because now all of a sudden we can name the things, we can name the feelings, we can name the beliefs that we're having about ourselves, we can name our behaviors. And then as we keep going with therapy, it eventually turns into like an exorcism where you can fully let it go. It's not that you forgot what happened to you. It's just that it's not hijacking your nervous system and taking over. You're not having flashbacks or triggers, hypervigilance, any of the things, anxiety, depression, like your mood is lifted. So it's been exercised. So that's how I started. How it's going is that's still the core of my whole shtick. And the more experiences that I'm having, because that's a thing, right? Like the more you start getting into this, the more that it's almost like the spirits are like, oh, she knows, she's in on it. Let's send her some more data that she can collect. So now I'm incorporating that too. I know that I don't know. I know that everything is energy. And that's something that I've always known, that there's so much more than meets the eye. Yeah. And there's probably parallel dimensions going on at all times. And all of that stuff is really cool and can be used and utilized in therapy as well as a way, it's transpersonal psychology, where we're looking not just at thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, but we're also looking at the person's spiritual beliefs and almost like an existential thing. So all of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating what the mind is capable of, and healing, and also harm to yourself. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. And it can be trying sometimes, but, through good therapy and also, your diet, your rest, like I said, there's a whole bunch of different other things with that too. So,
exercise.
Yeah, exactly. So can you share a case, obviously, no names or anything, where kind of like the paranormal element actually was a breakthrough for the patient's healing? Like, you had something came through and it was a breakthrough.
Yeah. Let's see how I can share this without sharing absolutely any demographics whatsoever.
Yeah, sure.
This client is someone who is very sensitive. So we're doing trauma work, but they are also very sensitive to the spirit realm, the other paranormal world, whatever you want to say. And so they do have experiences. So one avenue of that was we followed one avenue of that into the idea that they weren't done with, they had some unresolved grief, which is why one thing kept showing up. So it was great. It was like a point of entry because we took that seriously and they were able to talk to me about it. We were able to dive into let's drill down into that. Oh, look, there's some unresolved grief. So then we worked through that. And we also use it in other ways as the language of the higher self, so that this person realizes that they're more than just what happened to them. They also have different parts of themselves, not in like a dissociative way, like what used to be called multiple personality disorder, Sybil, not in that way, but that we all have parts of ourselves. Part of me wants this, part of me wants that, the wounded child, the inner child, like that kind of concept, so that you almost can take this entity experience and go, maybe that's part of me that's projecting out, that's looking and seeking and desperate to be heard and understood. So let's look at it that way, because that all of a sudden is more empowering and you're going to get a lot more out of it. There's a lot more meat in that than just going, oh, it's a ghost, we need to banish it or ignore it or not. It could be part of you that's calling out for healing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the other things to deal with that too is fear, as we talked about, can act as a catalyst for different paranormal activity. Like, how do you help a client break that? Because it's almost like a feedback loop. How do you help a client get past that feedback?
It is like a feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah.
That one's interesting. That one we can right off the bat use some somatic work with that. So like, where do you feel that fear in your body? Well, I feel it in my chest right here. Okay. Imagine that feeling is just a physical sensation, and let's give it some demographics. How big is it? Does it have weight to it? Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Now all of a sudden we're just objectifying it. And it's not a feeling it's not an emotion anymore. It's just a feeling. And I'll say, well, imagine if that is just a physical sensation. Is it so bad that it was something that you would go to the ER for? No. Oh, okay. So it sounds like you can handle it. And all it really is this red rectangle that's up in flames. Okay. What would put out a red flaming rectangle? Probably a bucket of water. All right, let's visualize water coming through. Okay, so we go through all that first because what we want to do is just neutralize the overwhelming physical sensations that happen to all of us that completely obliterate our ability to think clearly, right? It throws you into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is fun to say. Fight, freeze, or fawn. So that's how I'd approach that first, just so they had something to take home with them from that session. But then again, we got to get back into, is there a trauma history there? Is there something that is, like we talked about earlier, is there some kind of reason why you believe that you can't handle this? Even if it's that you believe you can't handle fear, because it's overwhelming. Well, then remember the body, somatic sensation technique that we learned, and you can handle fear. Look at the ways that you are in charge. Look at the support that you have. Or if you don't have support, look at the ways you are in charge, the different parts of yourself that are in charge, if you want to look at parts work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting to me because, again, the mind's very powerful to hurt or harm, and but also to heal. So it's something you can do. So I'm just curious, have you ever had a client come in and been like, hey, Brett, I got the ghost telling me, say in my name here, and then play something for you, and then it's like, Brett, and you're like, whoa, where'd you get that? Like, no, that's in my house. That happens every 3:00 in the morning. I set my recorder. Have you ever had that? Someone come in and give you a little evidence and you've been like, okay.
I haven't had evidence yet. I haven't had evidence except for live in office evidence of the dang plant moving, which happened, to both of us. We got to witness it. So, but, I've had everything from when I was working at the outpatient clinic, people who were in active schizophrenia who were not medicated, seeing demons crawling all over their body. And then one hopped off of him and leapt onto me, apparently, because the way that he looked me up and down, he's like, oh no, it hopped onto you. So I've had everything from that to people who are not in active schizophrenia, who are just talking to me about their experiences. Yeah. And, really maybe what it comes down to, the difference we have to look at things. I have to look at things through the psychological lens first. But what it comes down to really is, how are these things affecting your life? Yeah. That's what it comes down to for me as the haunted therapist, right? As a therapist who works with these metaphors and symbols and shadow work. Shadow work is another avenue that we can
right. Yeah. That's a big thing. So speaking of that, what I find fascinating is there's some things, maybe you call it something else, but the generic term is a topa, where people put their collective energy together and create, like a good example, Slender Man. Slender Man was just, we knew it was just some dude photoshopped it and just put it out there. It's not a joke, but he's kind of like, hey, let's have a little fun. But here in Wisconsin, a young girl was almost murdered by two other young girls because they believed Slender Man was real. And obviously they had certain mental issues going in. Well, one of the girls did. The other girl was I think they were like 11 or 12 at that time, was like, you know what I mean? You're a little girl. Oh, come on, let's have fun with this. And they didn't think it would get to this point.
Yeah.
So do you ever have clients coming in and you're trying to help them, but they keep like, no, I see the ghost. I see the ghost. It's at the foot of my bed. Now it's trying to touch me. And you're like, are you sure about that? Obviously you're not saying that, but you're saying something a little different, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like everything that we talked about earlier, I guess. Like I'm running it through the lens of diagnosis first and ruling things out first. And how is that affecting your behavior though? And let's look at ways that you can feel back in charge again. But although, the collective unconscious, which is our language for what you're talking about, right? Like Jung's Carl Jung's language, collective unconscious, collective subconscious. That there was that whole thing too, War of the Worlds with Orson Welles. That is, the mass kind of hysteria is definitely powerful for people. And again, when you're in that state of fright, you're not thinking clearly, as evidenced by the case you just mentioned. Yeah. And so that's why we have to start with grounding the nervous system. Like I was saying earlier about where do you feel that in your body, and trying to ground again and lower that emotional dysregulation, because that emotional dysregulation then feeds the thoughts in your head. Whereas something that might have just been a shadow of, like, maybe there's a ghost there, but then now you're getting all worked up about it. And so now, something falls downstairs because a mouse ran by or something. Well, now that's paranormal and this is paranormal. And, you just get kind of like everything is sensationalized, and we don't want that either. It's so much better to be in charge and in control and grounded and regulated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regulating your nervous system is a big one.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. And it's very important that you do that through whatever if you're seeing therapy or, an expert will tell you to do.
Yeah.
Because it's important that if you're getting to a certain point in your life where this is affecting everything, work, school, whatever, you might really want to seek help as soon as possible. Because again, it will make you feel better. But one of the things, oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my whole thing is I'm not trying to prove or disprove whether ghosts are objectively real, like I was saying earlier, but I'm more interested in how humans emotionally experience and interpret and integrate the unexplained.
Right.
An open door for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, where what you just mentioned is, how do you respond to colleagues maybe in your community or in the medical community who just believe you are validating the client's delusions? Yeah,
right. That hasn't happened to me yet. I think just because my approach is so metaphorical, right? Like my approach is so where I'm just using the language of the paranormal to explain trauma and the nervous system and all of those things. Like that's what I really lead with. But I'm putting all this out there. It's definitely possible that somebody will be like, you are feeding the delusion. But to that, I say we all are. Turn on your TV. Like there's all kinds of sensationalized delusion. It's not like I'm sitting in session across from a client, claiming anything, but I'm also not trying to disprove it. Again, if I think somebody is in psychosis, obviously I will escalate to a higher level of care. And if they're not, then we just fold it into how they're interpreting that experience for their lives. There's so much about the paranormal that can absolutely deepen somebody's human experience. It's so crazy. Right. The afterlife can improve this life, depending on how you work with it and look at it.
Yeah. And there's different things like attachment theory where, things are coming attached to you. Like, how do you explain that to a client where they come to you and they're being like, I think it's attached to me, whatever it is?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I could actually use attachment theory, which is a theoretical orientation or intervention in psychology. So we can treat this as a relationship. Let's treat it as a relationship. That would be, now, if I disprove or if I invalidated them, that I wouldn't be able to work with this. So now all of a sudden I have the ability to work with them through the lens of attachment theory. And, is this ghost bringing out your sense of your inner child or any, core attachment wounds or something, right? Like we can work with this. And why do you feel attached to it? Or are you experiencing that it's attached to you? And we do different interventions for that, depending on if that's how I'm going to work with it. Do you want it? Are you enjoying are you secretly enjoying the attachment? What would be the reasons for that? Let's take a deeper look. Like all of these things to me are just entry points for going deeper. Anything a client presents is an entry point for going deeper, including ghosts.
Yeah,
why not?
That's really interesting. Speaking of that, there's some weird attachments, which I don't know if you've heard of spectrophilia.
No, but I'll definitely be looking at that.
Spectrophilia is basically you're having a romantic affair with a ghost.
Okay,
And
because
if you
that's
want
what
to
it
have
sounds like. So I'm glad that's
it,
the definition. Because that's where my
it's a little deeper than that sometimes. If you want to have a good time to go down a rabbit hole, if you want a subject to do, which was really fun, which I've done before, I did one where a lady said she had 20 ghost babies with her ghost, a man ghost. I've had there were stories about a woman who divorced her pirate ghost husband because he was getting a little rough with her. There's stories out there where people go back to a single location to meet the loved one that they've been meeting every year that meets them at this fountain in Georgia or park. I don't know, whatever. And it's really interesting. It's mostly women. There are some men, but mostly women are having these attachments to male ghosts of having intimacy. And I'm kind of like on the fence. Like it's kind of, I'm not here to laugh at them, but it's kind of funny. But in the sense, it's like, wow, this is kind of serious. And they have come out. These are actual articles you can read that women have come out and have talked about it and really put themselves in a very vulnerable position of people being like, okay, fine, I guess. A little weird.
Yeah, fine, I guess. Yeah, like you have to, again, it's just like, well, okay, where's that coming from? We've got to drill way down to any core attachment wounds, relationship trauma around that,
right?
Safety seeking, reality checking, but also is that then precluding them from seeking actual human to human relationships, right? Like, is that getting in the way of their functioning? And does that matter? I mean, as I'm saying that, I'm like, maybe that's their type. Maybe ghost on type. I mean, listen, whatever works. Is it a healthy relationship? It sounds a little one-sided.
Yeah, that to me is little, again, if they're harming themselves or harming other people, obviously that has to have a discussion.
Exactly.
But it just seemed like that. It just seemed like these women totally believed they were having relationships with ghosts from wherever, and they came into their life. So
that's the ultimate.
It's interesting. It's a really interesting thing, and being that it's given a name, it's probably happened more than once, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's the ultimate getting ghosted, or, dependent personality disorder in a relationship with an avoidant or anxious attachment. Like that's the ultimate of that. Wow.
So, Brett, you have to promise me, if you ever have a woman come in, doesn't have to be a woman, could be a man, and they sit down with you and they go, so this is George, and you go, oh, great. Wait a minute. I don't see George. Where's George? He's right here. He's my husband. I want you to come back on this podcast as soon as possible. Obviously, no names or anything. I just want you to go like, well, that was weird.
I'm going to need therapy after that. Yeah, you could be my therapist after that, John. Like, woo.
Yeah, again, not to make fun of it or anything, but it's an interesting, like, okay. It's kind of one of those things you're like, all right. I guess I've been in here long enough. I'm going to see something like this. No surprises.
Right. Yeah, and no judgment free, but also
it's judgment free. It's okay. Like again, as long as it's not getting to a negative place where you're hurting yourself or other people. And let's, if we can work with you, let's do that.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this as we wrap up here. If there's someone listening to this podcast and they want to know, and they believe they're experiencing a haunting or a paranormal phenomenon, what's their first step? Obviously, it would be great to reach out to you, but what should you do first if you believe this is happening to you?
Yeah, so ground yourself, whatever that means to you. Make sure that you're doing good self-care. Try to keep everything that's in your control as consistent as possible. Don't make any big changes. Don't make any big decisions. And know that you don't have to make a decision right away. There doesn't need to be an answer right away. You've got a little wiggle room. You've got a little time as you contact a mental health professional and a spiritual advisor. There's so many great people in the paranormal community that you can reach out to and seek guidance with this, or at least just bounce ideas off. But you've got a little time. There doesn't have to be, like, I want you to ground your nervous system and understand there's not, you should head towards answers. You should head towards self-exploration, but it doesn't have to happen right now. Fear is a liar. it makes us believe that we have to take care of if a car is coming at you, you should be afraid and acting instantly. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But you know what I'm saying. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be decided right now which thing is which. So that's what I would say. Ground your nervous system, keep things as is as much as possible, and just start talking to people, reaching out to people, document your experiences. That probably would be a really good idea. Writing in and of itself is very therapeutic. So that would probably feel good. And get your environment up to where you want it to be. Get your own energy levels up, because from what, I hear people explain is that anything that could be a negative entity does prey on negativity or substance use. While you're in this waiting period, I would encourage you not to use substances. I'd encourage you to move your body, play music in your environment, involve all of your senses, all 5 or 6, if you want to call it that, senses, so that your home smells the way that you want it to. It looks the way that you want it to. Do grounding activities, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the 5 senses activity, 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2, taste, touch, all of that. So that you're constantly in tune with your own body, and remember that you have dominion over the ghosts in your environment and the ghosts in your own mind.
Yeah. That's great advice, Brett. Yeah. Again, it's not, you have to just jump and be like, okay, there's something wrong with me. I got to, try those things first. Because again, it might just be I don't know, something's going on in your life that's you've been dreaming of in your subconscious, and you're bringing it forward into your real life. Obviously, Brett knows more than that than me, but I've done that before. Where I'm just like, why is everything in this room feel dark or heavy?
Yeah.
Because I'm super stressed about my work, or I'm super stressed about whatever, right? And that's what you're doing. So take time for yourself. It's okay to be like, you know what? I'm not gonna, I had a bunch of things planned to do around the house. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go out to dinner. I'm gonna treat myself to a movie, right? Those are simple things, okay? But if it helps you,
yes,
why not? Start there.
Raise your own spirit. We're spirits having a human experience. Raise your own spirit. Get that guy healthy and working properly.
Yeah,
and it could just be your own shadow self trying to get your attention. Still have curiosity. Stay in a state of curiosity.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's awesome. So I always love to ask professionals like you, what is the one thing about your job that people always get wrong because of movies or TV? You know what I mean? They watch a movie or TV. Aren't you supposed to be Brett? Aren't you supposed to do this? And you're like,
yeah.
What?
Oh, well, one of my favorite shows of all time, The Sopranos, I guess, if I was Dr. Melfi, I would have to be dressed like in a suit with heels. And, I'm wearing like half the time I look like a teenage boy. So I'm very very casual. So, but very professional, right? Like the degrees are on the wall, the books are on the shelves. So, don't expect somebody to be real buttoned up necessarily. Like, we can be very casual as well and authentic. That's the most important thing, is that you want to find somebody who is authentic. And I think that movies and TV can kind of get that wrong sometimes, where, we come across rather stiff on screen and a little 2-dimensional. But there's also a show that's out right now. I can't think of it. It's on Apple TV, where the guy brings like a client home with him because he's trying to really save him. A good therapist has good boundaries. So, you can't, you can only expect so much. Like when the session ends, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's meant for TV and for movies, because you got to move the plot along. They got to solve a problem in an hour and a half or a 6-episode series. So, no, it's, don't think it's going to be like, they're really stiff, so I go into Brett and she's going to be, let me see you here.
Down my nose at you and at the desk, just head buried and taking notes. You can have one of those. It doesn't feel like that.
One of those tight collars on and a jacket, and be like, well, let me tell you, I believe like,
there is a reason for that. It's the perception that this person is in control and in charge and knows what they're doing, and that you can trust that person, and totally get that as well. It's like perceived authority is what it's called. But I prefer to do that in my actions, more so than what it is that I'm wearing. Although I would love to meet Tony Soprano. That would be interesting. I bet he's haunted or was.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to be involved in that, but okay, if you want to, more power to you.
Exactly.
So this is one of my favorite questions too. If you could tell a ghost or a person haunted by one thing they need to hear, what would it be?
Tell the ghost the thing,
ghost
or the
person haunted by one? Like, what would you tell it that, kind of be like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I mean, for sure, to tell the person that's being haunted is that whether the ghost is external and a true entity, or if it's internal, like you're being haunted by your trauma or your past or your grief and whatnot. Either way, they deserve to be heard and understood, which is best done if you remain grounded and with a regulated nervous system and in a state of curiosity.
Yeah. Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. And, all that is something that people need to hear, that it's not so obvious, right? You think it's obvious. You're like, well, that sounded obvious. Well, then if it was so obvious, you wouldn't be doing it. Because sometimes the simplest explanation or the best explanation is sometimes the simplest. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's okay. This is going to take time, right? Is that something you tell your patients too, just really quickly? Like, a lot of them want a quick fix, right, Brett? Like, you know what I mean? Just fix me.
And there are some people who just zoom right through therapy. Maybe it's because they just have like one event that they're working through, or, whatever's going on in their circumstances is almost resolved anyways. But most people are there, they're sat for a good bit while we drill, into the different invitations, into the deeper sense of the psyche and the shadow self and all of that. But yeah, it's all up to you. You could go to counseling 3 times and get some really good skills and then be on your way. And then 10 years later go, I fell down again. I need to go back. And maybe that time you're going to go for a little bit longer because you're further along in your life, or maybe your problems are more mature. Your problems are greater or something.
Yeah.
So it can be, that's the other thing. It is important to know it can be whatever you want it to be. You're in charge.
Yes. I love that. And last but certainly not least, I want to see how you'd react to this. If you haunted your office in the future, and let's say a therapist was in there, would you try to do something? Let's say the therapist is going, you're like, that's not right. Would you do something? Would you, as a ghost, would you be like, tip over your plant, or be like, write something on the wall, like, no, or something?
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, I probably shouldn't be in there because, that'd be a HIPAA violation.
Well, yeah.
And if I were a ghost, I'd be, underwater, just so I could like live down there and see what's going on down there. I'd go somewhere new. But if I could stop by my office, I can't wait to haunt. That's going to be a good time. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't wait. I'm not inviting anything soon. Knock on wood.
Yes, please. Yes.
But yeah, I think haunting sounds like a good time.
Yeah. So, Brett, I'm just guessing you from this small time I've been around you that you'd be a fun ghost, right? You wouldn't be a terrifying ghost. You'd be fun, right?
All about the mischief.
Yeah. So you might move some car keys. You might, pick up a coffee cup and let it float and then put it in the dishwasher or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Wouldn't be helpful. For sure. I probably would still have ADHD as a ghost too. So I'd be leaving things. I'd be moving coffee cups, not even on purpose.
Yeah. Right.
Just because I forgot I put them there.
That's going to be cool. I'll have to notice that in the future. If I'm in my wherever.
Tabs in the.
Hey, John, what you doing? Awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for the great advice. And again, people, give Brett some love. Like she's mentioned, different things you can do when it comes to not only therapy, but with paranormal. Please take that to heart, okay? Because we're all here to help you. We're all a great community of friends and people who want to see you get better. And if I can say anything, don't be afraid. If you're like, man, I don't want to bring this up. People think I'm going to be crazy that I saw this, whatever. No. It's okay. It's all right. There's, like I said, plenty of people like Brett and the people here in different communities online who are good people. Just make sure you're doing everything in your power to find the right people, do your research, ground yourself, do what you need to do first before you go fully into it. Because again, you want the right help and you want to continue to grow and be in control of yourself. So awesome. Love it. So, Brett, tell my spooky friends how they can get a hold of you and what do you got coming up?
So just go to thehauntedtherapist.com and you can link to all of my socials from there and my YouTube. I have a podcast. New episodes come out every Wednesday morning on, Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcast, but also on YouTube. So, or you could just go to @HauntedTherapist on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. @HauntedTherapist, all of the places. New episodes every Wednesday. And I've got all kinds of cool guests lined up too.
Nice. Definitely check that out and everything. Give her some love. And, again, if you are wanting to reach out to her, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So for therapy, and that's also on my website, thehauntedtherapist.com, you can link to my Psychology Today profile and also my private practice website. But I'm only licensed in New York State. So you just have to be living or residing or in New York State.
Yeah. Okay. And I do have some spooky friends in that area who listen to the podcast. So if you are listening to it, please, do your best to reach out to Brett, and, I think it's okay if they just had a couple questions for you to kind of feel things out. You're probably up for that, right?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Great.
For sure. Great. Healing begins when we stop running from what's haunting us, right?
Yes.
Let's open the doors to it. It's a great conversation.
Exactly. And Brett, I'll say this, you are more than welcome to come back. Maybe we'll have something around Halloween or something. I know this is probably your busiest time, but you're more than welcome to come back and talk about some different things that I didn't get to today that I would love it. So
yeah, I would love that too. This was great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett, and stay. Bye-bye.